Hey, welcome back to Six Pack Garage, Phoenix, Arizona. What we got here today is the YZF 1000R, also known as Thunder Race. Pretty cool bike. This is the predecessor to the R1. So this one's a 97 with 96,000 miles, so very high miles for a bike. I did a valve adjustment on this a while back. There's a video on that. So take a look at that if you want to learn how to do a valve adjustment on a bike. So the issue at hand is that the float bowls are overflowing for some reason. It was running fine, but then it started happening. And I'm pretty sure it's the needle and seat. I mean, what else could it be, right? I've already previously checked the fuel pressure. I rigged up a gauge and it's right around, I think, 7 PSI or so. So what I did is ordered this kit from eBay. Hopefully it's the right one. It's not super easy to find parts for these anymore. Like I said, rare bike, over, let's see, 28 years old. Yeah, math. So very old bike. But this kit comes with the idle adjustment screws, needle and seat, a bunch of little O-rings and things like that. So hopefully this will take care of the issue. So you can watch me struggle with that and maybe learn a couple things along the way. I know I will. So stay tuned. So this next step is probably the biggest pain in the butt, getting these carburetors off. There's a clamp around the bottom of each throttle body, or, well, carburetor, that is held on with a clamp. It's a 3mm, and you can't really see it. It's kind of hard to see, so I'm doing this one because it's the easiest one. But you can get it in there. You probably need like a selection of 3mm Allen wrenches. If you guys have any better ideas, let me know. But especially over here with the water outlet, it's really tough to get to. So I'm gonna try to do this without disconnecting the throttle cables. I might have to disconnect this adjustment cable here. All I really need to do is take the whole bank of throttle bodies or carburetors and lift them up so I have access to the fuel bowls down here. So I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible. Anyways, you'll see me struggle with these. It's a real pain. So I got that one out of 4, but that was the easiest. Okay, now I'm where I need to be as far as taking the float bowl covers off, and then also have access. I think once I'm going to take these off, then I'll take the idle air screws out. I know one of these is already bad. It was bad when I put it together. I just didn't have the parts to replace it, but one of the O-rings was missing, and it's a super small O-ring, so it was a pain to find anything that would fit in there. But now I have all the parts I need. You can kind of see the red grease here and mismatch washer, so that's for the choke mechanism. I've come in and lubed that previously. So anyways, now you can watch me take these screws out. You might see me use different types of tools, but these are specific types of screws. I think I have all the right drivers for these, but it's like a British or JIC or something like that. Put it down in the comments if you know the name of that type of screwdriver. Main thing is you don't want to break these or screw up the heads on these, so take a lot of care taking these out. Luckily these have been out who knows how many times over the last 28 years, so shouldn't be bad. All right. Well, looks like the right seal for sure. You can see the parts in here. So I'll have to take the float out to get the seat in there and needle right here. Whoops. So I just dropped the needle. Okay, so that just fell out on the ground, but so the needle just hangs off of this tab right there. And you can, if you look at the tab, see how it's bent down? So if you were replacing the float and everything was working fine, you'd want to try to duplicate that because these are a little difficult to set float level without taking it back apart every time. So if everything's working fine, that's how you want to do it. But these floats are fine. I might double check them anyways, but I'm pretty sure they're fine. And then here's the needle. So that is where you can see, okay, see the groove there? Right there. So that's what's not sealing. So fuel, even though the float is up, so up, which would seal the fuel supply from getting more fuel in, it's not sealing, it's pushing through that. And I'll have to pull the seat out to see if there's any damage or dirt on that, but I have new parts, so it'll be okay. I'm just going to replace them anyways. But this rubber is probably quite old. I doubt that this is original. I'm sure it's been replaced in 28 years, but over time that rubber just probably gets hard and just doesn't seal well enough. Okay, so this is where it pays to have a set of bits, because these screws are pretty tiny, and if you don't have the right one that fits in there just right, you'll strip these screws out. So this is where patience is key. If you don't have the right tools, you have to get them. Otherwise you will ruin the heads on these screws, and then finding replacements, good luck. Okay. And here's another thing. So there's supposed to be a screen on here, and that's missing. So I'll have to look down the hole, see if it's in there, but at least the aftermarket one has a screen here. So in there is where that rubber piece will seat. That's why this is called a seat, and it's called a needle. But it sits in here and keeps the fuel from coming into the bowl. So fuel's coming this way through the fuel rail, which is right here. And if that doesn't seal, it'll push through and flood. That's what's happening. So kind of hard to tell if that's probably brass, but hard to tell if that's damaged. It's most likely just that rubber is worn out. So that's a needle and seat. Okay, next step is the idle screw. So you can see the yellow paint mark I put on my socket here, which is actually flat screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with turning it in before I turn it out, so I know how many turns from fully seated this is currently. So that's 1, 2. Okay, 2 turns it's seated. So now I know that it was 2 turns out. So that'll be probably my starting point. And this is a lot easier to do now, because once the carbs are in, these are kind of at the bottom and hard to get to. So if you can get these right the first time, consistent carburetor to carburetor, to the point where it's not running too rich or too lean at idle, that's half the battle. Okay, so alright, so that is the idle adjustment screw, which is intact, but there is a spring in here, should be. Might have to figure, I might just have to use gravity. See if I can flip it over. It kind of should have come out in one piece, but because there's a washer and a O-ring that hold this spring in. There we go. Okay, so there's the spring. And now what's still in there, or should be in there, is an O-ring and a washer. And I'll show you that a little bit if I dig it out of there. So I'm going to remove the main jet, just because I'm curious to see if it's clear. It should be. Yeah, so you can see. So it's a 127.5. Yeah, 127.5. So then I'll look at the inner ones and see what those are, but they're going to be different. And you can see the tool marks. See that tool mark on there? So these have been in and out before, because I didn't put that tool mark on there. Okay, so no washer in there. Remember that little washer? And this is one where I think this is a different O-ring. It's too thick. And there's no washer. So that little brass washer is freaking gone. Not in there. So, you know, that's going to be a problem with idle. Trying to get the idle right. So this one was at 1.5 turns. The other one was at 2 turns. And that's why, because obviously you couldn't adjust it properly with the wrong O-ring and no washer. Okay, and I'll clean out that. See that little piece of crud? I'll blow that out of there. That's how it's supposed to come out. See how that came out in one piece? So you got the screw, the spring, brass washer, and the O-ring. They all came out in one piece. And that one was that was 2.5 turns out. So far we've had 2 turns out, 1.5, 2.5. So this is something I think pretty important. I like to do it this way whenever I'm working on anything, is when you've got multiples, put things in order. So I started from right to left on the carburetors. So I have right to left all the parts, which should all be the same. But there was, I think this carburetor here was the one that was missing the washer. This one here is the one that everything came out as it should have. And this is nice because this seemed to turn nicely, work nicely, so that's probably the right order of things, where you have the spring, the washer, the O-ring, as opposed to, let's say, the spring, the O-ring, the washer, you know. So this is all right, and the O-ring is what retains the assembly, right? Where the other ones, everything kind of fell apart. So that's telling me the O-rings weren't doing their job. They're probably hardened, so they just fell off, where this one stayed together. So I'm gonna put it back together, take a second look at everything. I'll run like a small brush or something through the jets that are remaining, and just to make sure those are clean, and then I'll start reassembly. So I bought this set off of eBay or Amazon or something, but it comes with little brushes and then a bunch of these like rods for cleaning small orifices, and it comes with a set of precision drill bits, which can be a little controversial, like all the hotshot carburetor guys are probably going to tell you don't use these, because if you run that through an orifice, you could potentially create small metal chips. So if you're sitting there, going like this, you might create some little metal chips that clog up the carburetor. So you got to have some common sense, but some of these are so tiny that you might be able to poke through an orifice with something like this instead of spraying a bunch of carb spray at it. So use at your own risk, whatever. And then it also comes with a bunch of tiny drill bits, and you can take a micrometer, measure the drill bit, or it doesn't have to be these, but any drill bit, and just put the smooth part. You can put that through the orifice and then mic that and check the orifice size if they're not labeled well. So mine are labeled well. I'll run something like this or a small brush through it just to make sure they're clear, which I know they are already. And then, obviously not causing any metal chips or anything. And put it back together. And this comes with it too. It's a little like handle you can chuck one of the small bits into to poke through some crud or whatever. Obviously, if you have crud or something, then you got to flush it through with brake cleaner, or carb cleaner, or whatever, to get that crud so it doesn't cause another clog downstream. So here's basically a way to check your orifice size. So there's supposed to be a 125 on there, right? That's what it's marked. And then, so if I take this tiny drill bit, it barely fits in there, right? Okay, I'll zero this real quick. And I measure that. So it's with a little bit of pressure on it. 125 fits in. So I think these are marked 125 or 126, hard to read. So that fits, and then it's these are 127 and a half on the outside. It's a little bit loose in there. So I believe that. I think nobody's drilled these out. And that's what these drill bits you could do, is you could potentially drill out a jet. And what comes with the kit is a 115. So if I just plugged in these jets that came with the kit, first of all, the center ones wouldn't be right. Well, none of them would be right, but they would all be the same size. And, they're supposed to be different inside to outside. Now I could drill these out. Like if I had the exact perfect size drill bit, I could drill out these jets and use them, but why? There's nothing wrong with the jets that are in here. Just got to make sure they're clean, that's all. Okay, so the idle air jets, the kit came with these. So that's a 20. And what's in there is a 17 and a half. The other thing is, if you look at okay, so technically this says it's bigger, right? It's a 20 and a 17 and a half, but look at the hole sizes on the bottom. So this one flows way more compared to this one. So if I use the one that was in the kit, I think I'd be struggling with setting my idle. So I'm going to save these, but I'm not going to use them. I'm just going to blow through these. And even just blowing through this one, even though it says it's a 17 and a half versus a 20, just blowing through this, I can actually blow air through it. This one's really tough because these holes are so tiny. So I'm going to use what I believe to be the factory piece on these, because there's nothing wrong with these that I can tell. Before I put it back together, I just wanted to show you a better view of the clamps that I was talking about in the beginning of the video, which are kind of difficult, a pain to get to. They are 3mm Allen heads, so you need a combination of kind of a short, longer ball end Allen wrench, even a 3mm Allen bit might help. This far right one is easier with the right fairing off, but I didn't want to deal with taking that off. I just struggled with it. But anyways, before I put it back together, I did put some paper towel in there just to make sure nothing falls in. You know, anything that falls in there could easily destroy the entire engine. Take out the valve, and the valve takes out everything else. So got to make sure everything's clear before you start putting it back together. I usually use a telescoping magnet to stick it down there, make sure there's nothing that fell in there. Okay, so in conclusion, I'm happy with the result. You saw the importance of having the vacuum gauges, so you can buy those from, I think, Harbor Freight. I don't remember if I bought those from Harbor Freight or eBay or another online seller. I've had it for a few years. Had I not put those on to test for the equalization of the carburetors, I would have been battling that with idle adjustments and so forth, drivability or rideability issues. So what you saw there was the right and left pair of carburetors were out of sync. So what you just synchronize, you saw me adjust that center screw, and that's what synchronizes the two pairs. So you want to synchronize those first to see if that's all that needs to be done. And then you can do individual pair adjustment. There's a screw in the center of each pair of carbs. So I didn't have to go there, luckily. So it was just an adjustment in the center. You kind of saw me hunting for that sweet spot. And it's looking at the vacuum reading on the gauge, as well as listening to the engine sound. Like, you can hear when the engine starts to get happy. It's happy in a certain sweet spot, and then you look at the gauge data and call it good. So happy with that result. It was basically a relatively simple carburetor rebuild. I know there's not a lot of information out there, so hopefully this will help you if you have an old set of Mikuni carburetors. They used them on all kinds of sport bikes and older bikes, had Mikunis on them. So this is basically a tutorial on how to do that. I'm not an expert by any means, so I'm not a certified motorcycle mechanic or anything. So this is just me doing it at my house on my, actually it's my son's bike. So hopefully that helps. Appreciate you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.